Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Friends with Fertility. Today we have Lucy Libido. She is a functional hormone practitioner and best-selling author of Lucy Libido Says There's an Oil for That. She's also the founder of the Happy Hormone Lab, where she helps women navigate hormone imbalances, perimenopause, menopause, and everything in between with humor and science. After overcoming her own health struggles, Lucy now empowers women worldwide to test, understand, and balance their hormones naturally so they can feel like themselves again. Hormones. Oh my gosh. I feel like that's a Pandora's box, right? It's crazy. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here because I feel like this is such a needed conversation.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to chat about this with you, Elizabeth. It's something that I'm super passionate about, like a little actually crazy excited. I love talking hormones. I talk a lot about libido, which is a super fun topic. But honestly, I always say that your hormones, it's going to impact everything, whether it's libido, fertility, your perimenopause journey. Having healthy, functional hormones is a really underlying foundation for just joy, vitality, and just health overall.
It really is. It's crazy how underestimated hormone health is in our overall well-being in so many areas. But let's take a step back. For listeners who don't know you yet, can you share a little bit about your journey and how you became to be a functional hormone practitioner and how you got so excited about hormones?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been in like the health and hormone area. I opened up a community called Lucy Libido Says, and we talked about natural oils, supplements, herbs for hormone health. I had a community go viral, and then I had a best-selling book go viral, and people were just saying, hey, I want more of this. We want to be able to be happy and healthy, but not necessarily rely on drugs. And so what's interesting about hormone health is, especially with the community of people that I work really heavily with right now, which is perimenopause, is that perimenopause is a time of life that your hormones are shifting and they're going downward. And I don't know if this is going to get censored out, but I call it reverse bitch puberty because it's instead of like going into puberty, and I have a child who's in this age group and everything is kind of going crazy as it's going up. We're going crazy as we're going down. And it's this whole thing that honestly has never been taught in the medical community. It's not a medical curriculum, and it's something that the functional space has really stepped into and is doing a really good job now. There are some doctors that are really stepping into this space. And it's an area that I really felt personally. I thought that I was going crazy. I was having horrible brain fog. I was not able to finish tasks. And I thought, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Like, is my life over? Because I had this period of life where I was like super successful in life, in business, and I was smashing all my goals. I was like a professional ballet dancer and a silk aerialist, and I was doing these incredible things. And I had a best-selling book and I had a big following. And then suddenly I couldn't think. Like, my brain wasn't working. I had all these issues happening. And I thought that I was having like some midlife ADHD thing that maybe I was never diagnosed. But in reality, I was going through perimenopause and I was having a big drop in my hormones. And testosterone is a motivator. Estrogen keeps us healthy, and we have brain receptors we have estrogen receptors in our brain. And progesterone drops really, really lead to a loss of struggles with our mood, anxiety, and depression. And what's interesting is people who really study hormones, and they find that women very commonly go in for help mid 40s, people who haven't never felt like they've needed it before for ADHD, for anxiety, for depression. And what's interesting is their environment hasn't necessarily changed. So we're talking about women who they're not necessarily going through a divorce, which is obviously going to create extra stress. They're not necessarily in a situation in their environment that should make them more sad, but they're feeling very depressed or they're feeling very unmotivated, even though from the outside people might think that they're successful. And the medical community, and I never bash the medical because medicine is so important. And I feel like we work hand in hand on these things. But the only solutions that we have for a lot of these issues, hormone issues, is usually birth control, which does not fix the issues, or SSRIs, which are very commonly prescribed to women in their 40s for anxiety and depression. But research has shown that when women who are having falling hormones get their progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone levels addressed first, most of them don't actually need SSRIs. And most women in this category perform better on hormone therapy than they do SSRIs. And even getting the correct, even without a prescription, even women who are struggling with these issues, and we get their minerals balanced, their magnesium, their selenium, their zinc, we get their cortisol levels down and their insulin levels down. All of these issues like brain fog, rage, gaining weight in the center, sadness, weepiness, anxiety, they dissipate so much. And so this is where I step in and I help you to understand like how to understand what your body is telling you. What are your symptoms saying? Do you need testing? Do you just really need really good nutritional support? And we break it down into a step-by-step program that helps women to understand, okay, this is what my body's telling me. This is what I need to do. And the first choice might not necessarily be an SSRI, which sometimes we need that. There's going to be a point in almost any person's life where they might need that for a short period of time, but long term it's not going to correct a hormone imbalance. And when we're masking with things like that rather than addressing falling hormones, so many women are underserved and they don't get that joy and that happiness back that they do with having good nutrition and having great balanced hormones, because when your nutrition is in check and your hormones are in check, like you feel amazing.
Oftentimes people don't even recognize that they don't feel unamazing, right? Because they're so used to feeling burned out and the brain fog and tired and exhausted all the time that they think that it is situational rather than hormonal.
Mhm,
And I perimenopause itself as a term, I feel like is used quite frequently. And people will say to me, well, my doctor just told me I'm in perimenopause, so I'm not
mhm,
going to be able to have a baby. I'm like, well, let's take a step back here a little bit
mhm,
because I think it's like I say for that a shoe size that I give the example of what's normal for
uh-huh,
somebody, right? I'm for my height, a normal shoe size could be from a size 5 to a size 7. But if I'm
mhm,
wearing any of those that is not a size 6, I'm going to get a blister because it's not my size, even
yeah,
though it's in the normal range for my body. The
mhm.
same for hormones and this perimenopause period. So why is there so much confusion for people being told that they're in perimenopause at different stages? And I think it kind of scares them a little bit because, again, our audience is trying to have a baby for the most
Mhm.
part. And to hear that is like, oh my gosh, it's over. I'm There's no chance. But really, take us down a little bit of what that means and what would be normal for one person versus the next.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, there's a lot of confusion around it because it's not something that is necessarily taught in the medical curriculum. And
Right.
so our traditional in the US system of going to the doctor is not going to be trained in that area. So when they say, oh, you're in perimenopause, that's just normal, what they're saying is you're having all these symptoms and problems, but there's nothing that I can give you besides birth control or an SSRI. The
And I'll
functional
just
side.
state that most of these doctors, I won't say all of them, but most of the people are going to an OBGYN that's getting this
Mhm,
kind of diagnosis, so to speak, or
mhm,
maybe an endocrinologist sometimes.
uh-huh.
Um, but it's usually somebody who's that they're not just specializing in hormones, right? They're
Yes,
doing
yeah,
lots of other things as their specialty. I
right,
just want to
and
state that.
yeah, and that doesn't mean, and again, I have nothing against doctors because they're
Right.
so highly trained in what they do. Like, if I want to have a baby delivered, like, I wouldn't come to me. I
A
wanna
hundred
go to an
percent.
OBGYN for
Right.
that, right? But
Right.
if I need help with functional hormone health, I need to go to like, a functional hormone nutritionist because this is what we do, right? This is what we're trained in. And so there's been a lack of training for a long, long time in the traditional medical community. And there's a lot of push right now for that to be changed to include perimenopause and menopause care, and that is a shift that I'm seeing that I'm so excited about. But the confusion is there's not been a lot of education around it until as of late. And the people that are pursuing that education are people that are pursuing it because it's something they want to offer their clients. Specifically, it's not to get your degree, it's because you want to do this. So, like, I want to do hormone health. So, I've gone out and I've got the education and the training in functional hormone health so I can offer that to my clients. So, the confusion is because, first of all, there's not been a lot of education. The second reason there's a lot of confusion is there has been a lot of misinformation and redacted information around hormone therapy and around perimenopause. So it used to just be perimenopause, menopause, you struggle through it, it's normal. That is not true. It's common for women to struggle through this time of their life. It's not normal, and you don't have to. You don't have to feel brain foggy, sad, weepy, depressed, anxious. And if you are going to a practitioner who's saying, well, it's just, you're 35, you're 40, you're 45, you got 3 kids, of course you're tired. That's not a
Mhm.
solution. That's an excuse for how you feel. And yes, that's probably a part of it, right? We do a lot as
Right.
women, we give a lot to others. But there's also another woman who is doing all those things and is feeling great. So why not you? And so we need to keep in mind that normal, like you said, the shoe size doesn't necessarily mean healthy. A lot of the redacted information around hormone therapy, and this is something I've done a lot of webinars on, has really been coming to light. And about 20 years ago, there was a study that came out that was testing like heart attacks and breast cancer survivors. I'm sorry, breast cancer rates. And there was a real misinterpretation of data saying that breast cancer rose significantly with hormone therapy. I will give you a really simplified version of that. This is not going to be like exact numbers per se. This is kind of whittled down for the sake of like understanding the conversation without going deep into like the research. But let's say there was 2 groups of women and they looked at them over a course of it was approximately 8 years, if I remember off the top of my head. Again, don't quote me on exact numbers, but this is for the sake of understanding. Say you've got 1,000 people in one group, control group, and you've got 1,000 people in another control group. One was utilizing hormone therapy, group A, and then group B was not utilizing hormone therapy. And so in group A, out of that, again, 1,000
Sorry,
is for the
Lucy,
sake of understanding.
what would you be considering hormone therapy? Because I think that even that confuses people.
I will, yeah, I'll get to that. So this
Okay.
particular one, they were using Premarin, which was a synthetic progesterone and an estrogen,
Okay.
and we've actually changed the way we do hormone therapy. But it was hormone therapy 20 years ago, which is not even what we do today. So
Okay.
again, we're looking at results on things that we don't even use anymore. But 20 years ago, when they took these 2 groups, one group in the non-hormone therapy uh, the group that was not utilizing this particular hormone therapy, there were, say, like maybe 3 people who had breast cancer out of 1,000. Okay, and then in the group that was utilizing hormone therapy, out of 1,000, there were, let's say, approximately 6 out of that 1,000 that had breast cancer at the end of 8 years. Now, the difference of 3 out of 1,000 and 6 out of 1,000 is less than 1%. Is really statistically insignificant because there could have been other causal factors in the people in this group versus this group, like family health history and the way they ate, etc. However, there was this big fire alarm that said the rates of breast cancer double when you use hormone therapy because it went from 3 to 6. Did it go
Mhm.
from 3 to 6? Well, if the sample group was 6, but it went from 3 out of, let's say, 1,000 to 6 out of 1,000. Do you see the difference? It wasn't
Right.
actually a doubling. It was a very small, insignificant, and numbers will never be the exact same. But they put out this big warning, and everyone stepped back because they were so afraid of being sued for using hormone therapy because if their patient got cancer, then they would be blamed. And it really came off the market, and it did this massive disservice to women because it was in that period of time, this last 20 years, that issues like around anxiety and depression and sleep really got worse for American women, and the rates of women needing to utilize sleep aids, antidepressants, SSRIs skyrocketed because access to hormone therapy essentially disappeared overnight. And now we're coming back and we're saying,
Which at the
hey,
same time that the SSRIs kind of ramped up, right?
yes, absolutely.
Around
So
the
while
80s,
when
90s,
hormone therapy
essentially.
was taken away, SSRIs, sleep aids, antidepressants, and anxiety meds skyrocketed because when our hormones
Mhm.
drop, those are the symptoms that we feel. And we didn't actually have the more natural solution available. Now we're coming
Right.
back and we're saying your first line for these kinds of things should be balancing your minerals, getting your cortisol down, and hormone therapy because it's bioavailable. It works better. And it's
Hmm.
really, we're replacing what we're missing rather than adding something new. You
Right.
asked
It's
about
so sad.
bioavailable. Yeah.
Sorry, it's so sad because you think about like the the housewives on Valium that they joke about in the 60s, 70s when that first came out, and thinking that they were all just needing to be medicated because of their
Mhm.
situation, when really it was probably just they were all unbalanced hormones based
Yeah.
on the time of life that they were in, which is really
Yes.
sad, I think, to think back of like self-medicating based on the wrong information.
We took away a tool that was helping people and we replaced it with a different tool that, in my opinion, should not be your first line. It should be your last line. It should be the last thing you pick when you've tried other things.
Right.
So, you also asked about bioavailable. So, hormone therapy has come a long way, and also functional health has come a long way. So, I serve a lot of clients with and without hormone therapy. The initial thing that we do is we take a look at stress, cortisol, insulin, minerals, and nutrition, because getting those in check gets you 80% of the way there. So many of my people do so much better with those, which are truly the basics, don't even require a prescription. Then some people need more, and some people need hormone therapy. And people are afraid of it because they think it causes cancer, or they're like, I don't do like I don't take drugs, I don't take prescriptions. And I always just say, well, if you were diabetic and you weren't making insulin and you were feeling really sick, what would you feel guilty to take insulin? And most
Right.
women say no. I'm
Hmm.
like, well, then why do you feel guilty to take estrogen or progesterone when that's falling and you feel horrible? And they're like, oh, yeah, because this is something that we naturally have, but it drops through perimenopause and menopause. And we feel better when we keep those levels up, whether it's through natural functional supports like cortisol and minerals, which will help that, or adding a little bit of bioavailable hormones. And bioavailable means that it is something that your body can easily absorb. It's similar to your body's chemistry. The first hormone therapies were a little bit more synthetic. And now on the market, a lot of the older synthetic ones that don't work as well are actually not on the market, or if they're on the market, they're not usually the first choice that prescribers are using. So most prescribers are really using like an estrogen patch because we know that's safer and more effective than oral. Oral progesterone is actually very safe and effective, and it's very inexpensive. And so the hormone therapy that most providers are offering as a first choice are going to be the really natural, bioavailable, low dose, just to help you feel well kind of options. And I just want people to not be afraid of that because so many women do so great on it.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really great to know. What is the best way for people to test around these things to start with? Because I know there's a lot of controversy about that as well. I've had doctors in the past tell me, well, you can't really measure cortisol, so I'm not even going to do it.
Right.
And you got to do a saliva test or a urine test or a blood test or whatever. So,
Mhm.
what do you think is the best way to test everything that we need to know for our hormones?
That is a good question. And that is another area where there is so much confusion and there's so much different feedback that it's so hard for a woman to know what to do. And this is where I step in because this is something that I'm so well versed in and I do every day. There is the one school of thought that says there is no point in testing hormones because they change every day. And it's true. Yes, they do change every day. And your cortisol changes every day. But we also, as functional hormone providers, we understand the patterns of hormones. We understand the up and down through the cycle. We understand that it looks different in perimenopause than it does when we're trying to get pregnant or we're trying to conceive or when we're looking at infertility issues. We also understand that cortisol changes through your day and that's going to impact your sleep cycles. It goes up and down. So when you understand the patterns of hormones day to day, hour a day, and day of the month, then what we do is we track and we understand where you're at when we take those tests. So we understand where it should be in relationship to where you are. So like if you go and you take a blood test and you don't know where you are in your cycle, it's going to be really hard to look at those numbers and understand like what does this actually mean. So when people work
Right.
with me, we set up a real specific plan of like, hey, this is the day I want you to test your hormones because we know that you're in this window and I want to see where you are in this window. This is the most important window for me to look at. So someone in fertility issues, I'm going to be looking at like right when their LH should be surging and like right when their estrogen should be at its peak to see like, do you have enough estrogen? Do you have enough progesterone? For for a woman who's struggling with perimenopause, I'm going to be taking it later in the luteal phase of her cycle, which is when everything is dropping because I want to see, okay, how low are you tanking when you're at your low? And so it does give valuable feedback and it does give you a baseline. Now, it's not required for prescribing. You can prescribe based off of symptoms. And so I think that's where some providers are like, well, I don't necessarily need it to prescribe. So my programs, we have a Happy Hormone Lab that doesn't include testing, but we still get a lot of results because we're doing our basic foundational work together in a program. It's a group program. And then I also offer a testing program that's functional. And that one we're testing like your gut for like any kind of dysbiosis that can be messing with your thyroid. We're testing your thyroids. We're doing a full panel for your hormones. And it gives us really amazing picture into like what are we actually looking at so we can really get precision point specific with your protocol. And then that comes with like a 6-month protocol where we're step by step going, okay, we need to get rid of this in your gut. We need to work on this in your liver. We need to work on this with your thyroid. Doing this is going to help your estrogen and your progesterone. And it's very specific. So there's value in both of them. And I offer both of them. It's really like, how big are my issues? How specific do I want to be? How much time do I want to spend on it? There's value in testing. It's just going to come down to like, what are your goals? And if your provider is saying that there's no value to testing, I don't necessarily agree with that because it's a window into your body and it tells us what's going on. And it can
For
give you
sure.
some really good guidance as to what you should be doing. But also my Hormone Lab program, that's a non-test program. It's a step-by-step protocol that like every woman will get better on. And there's so much value in that too. So it just really
Amazing.
comes down to what you want. But I would never say that there's not value in testing. I think that there's massive value in that.
So it sounds like the first actionable step, if you suspect that you might have some hormone imbalance, is to figure out what your goal is, right? And how deep do you want to go in that? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, and understanding your hormone type. So that's something that I offer as a free service to women, and that's something that I'll give you and your listeners. We have a quiz that's called, what is your hormone type? Because you're going to address things differently if you're having low progesterone, which is going to really heavily impact fertility. It's also going to impact mood. If you've got falling estrogen, that's going to impact things like night sweats, hot flashes, a perimenopause to menopause transition. If your thyroid isn't working optimally, then you're going to be having exhaustion, thinning hair, you're going to be gaining weight around the center. And all of these things are going to be different symptomologies. So we have a quiz called What's Your Hormone Type? And it helps you to understand what your hormone type is. So it gives you a place to start. And in my Hormone Lab program, we build the program around, we put people into pods based on their hormone type.
What are some
Because
examples of types? What do you mean by your hormone
so
type?
like a thyroid. So a type that I would do is like thyroid issues if you're having issues with your thyroid,
Hmm.
infertility issues if you're having issues with low progesterone, perimenopause or menopause issues if you're having issues with falling hormones, and also another type that's common is estrogen dominance, and this is going to be like heavy bleeding. That'll lead to things like PCOS and endometriosis. And all of those hormone imbalances are hormones going different ways, too high, too low. We can't just say, take this one thing and your hormones are going to be balanced, although there are a lot of adaptogens that do a lot. But if your estrogen's already too high, obviously hormone therapy would make it worse. If your progesterone is too low, then focusing on your thyroid isn't going to be the best thing. If your insulin is out of whack, your thyroid's going to be out of whack. So it helps me to, and you to understand, okay, what are my issues? What are my symptoms? My body is telling me this. That means this is where I need to focus my time and my energy because there are so many people that are going to say things like, oh, I felt bad and I took this and I got better. And then you go and you do the same thing and you get worse. Well, it's because that wasn't your deficiency and that wasn't your issue. So the place to start is understanding what your hormone type is so that you can make the
Right.
right kinds of choices based on what you actually need.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because so often we see people self-diagnosing with social media because they want the results that Susie Q has, and so she did this or took this, and so she's the same age as me, and I'm going to try that. But
Mhm.
to your point exactly, we don't know the history of what's going on with them. And if there's something a little bit off, then you're going to be doing yourself a disservice and delaying your own progress because you're not sufficiently testing yourself to know your own blueprint of what you need to be working off. So I cannot stress
Mhm.
enough to encourage people to get to know their own body and to test what type they are so they can
Yes.
really serve yourself rather than what you read online in some sense. So
Yes,
let's talk really
exactly.
quick about oils. I'm so curious about this, blending the science between oils and what is that about? Because I know there's you go into people's homes and you see sometimes like people have oils around these days. So what is that about?
That's a great question. So my best-selling book is Lucy Libido Says There's an Oil for That. And you can grab that at my shop, which is lucylibido.com or shop.lucylibido.com. And it's on Amazon too. But we talk about using oils. So oils is the extract of a plant. So if you think of herbs, it kind of falls under like using herbs because it helps to support your body in a particular direction. There are some oils that help to support estrogen levels. There are some oils that help to support progesterone levels. They are not as strong or as effective as hormone therapy. So I just want to be clear with that. But they're very, very safe. And it's something that anyone can use to kind of support their body in a particular direction. I also really encourage using adaptogens. So I have an adaptogen drink that is high levels of multiple forms of magnesium. It also has adaptogens that help to bring down cortisol, and that one is extremely effective in helping to calm the adrenals, calm the cortisol, because when our cortisol is high, it's going to steal from our progesterone and our estrogen. It's kind of like I always say that like your hormones, they come through pathways. And so up here we've got these ingredients to a cake, right? Let's say flour, sugar, salt, eggs, butter, and it's all up here, right? And our body utilizes those and it breaks them down into things like progesterone, estrogen. These are our happy hormones. But we also use those same ingredients to come down here and make something different, cortisol. So if you think of like progesterone and estrogen as your happy hormones and you're taking these ingredients from a cake, flour, sugar, eggs, butter, and you're making a cupcake, something that's, I don't know, happy. But you can take those same ingredients and like you can make like bread, which, maybe not quite as exciting, but your body uses it and needs it. This is what happens with cortisol. When our cortisol is high, it's taking from these ingredients, and then we don't have the capacity to have the same levels of progesterone and estrogen. Also, when we're mineral deficient, minerals are needed for the transport of all of these body processes. And so when we're mineral deficient and our cortisol is high, even if we're taking hormone therapy, we're not going to be converting it into hormones, and we're still not going to feel well because that high cortisol is going to kind of jack with everything. And so this is why I love using nutrition, oils, herbs, adaptogens. I have a great multivitamin protocol that helps women through infertility and perimenopause because it's made to support women. It's got higher levels of the minerals that we need versus what men need, because we have higher needs for iron and selenium and zinc and magnesium than men do. And so all of these natural tools are things that you can do like right now today without a prescription to feel better. You can, use an adaptogen drink that's going to help you with your hormones. You can make sure you have enough minerals. You can use oils that are going to help with your stress. All of these things help without even necessarily using a prescription. So I recommend them in my programs, and I even offer special discounts and links to people to utilize them even if they're not in my program, because even if you're not taking my lab program, I still want you to feel your best, and I still want you to use good quality nutrition and supplements and things that are affordable and effective, so you're not wasting your money on garbage supplements on Amazon, because you deserve to feel well with the supplements that you're taking.
Yes, I've said that many times before, and I'm glad that you said that again, is that not all supplements are created equally. So you really want to make sure that you're careful about what you're putting into your body. I see a lot of people that are even over supplementing and it's taking things that they don't need to be taking. And it's so important that you get good quality. So again, where can people find you and all of these amazing courses and giveaways and supplements and oils and all the fun stuff? Gosh, there's
All the
so
good
much.
stuff. Okay. Well, you can find me at lucylibido.com. And if you want some freebies to help you get started feeling better today, because I want you to feel better whether or not you take my lab course. I have a cortisol lowering cheat sheet that gives you supplements, oils, and herbs and food that are going to lower your cortisol that are super effective. I have a nutrition system that I partner with that I use in my program called ULA. They have a mind body balance system that helps with brain fog and focus in the morning. You take a supplement in the morning called Mind that helps with brain fog focus. You take a supplement in the evening and that helps with your cortisol and it helps to calm. And then it has a magnesium supplement called Balance. And every woman can take that. Fertility, infertility, perimenopause, menopause. It's going to help with mood, hormones. It's going to help with lower cortisol, and it's going to help with even things like hot flashes and like perimenopause mood. Like my life changed when I started using this, and I'm a functional practitioner and I have access to like everything. And this is like what I use because it's so effective and affordable, and like anyone can get it even without a prescription. So that's one of my cortisol tools that I offer people. So I'll give your people a cortisol guide with some of those tools that I truly use for myself and I use in my lab, and you can use that too, whether or not you're in my lab. I still want you to have access to good quality supplements. The second thing I can give your people, give you, all of your amazing listeners, is my free hormone, what's your hormone type quiz. So you can understand what your quiz is. And so you have a better idea of like what you should be focusing on specifically. And that's a great tool to kind of get you started. And then when you're ready to join the lab, my lab is so affordable. We do them in group cohorts. We do them a few times a year. I'm opening up the doors to that in just a few weeks of this recording. And so that's exciting
Amazing.
because your people can hop in, and it's a 6-week program. We go step by step through all of those things that naturally you can do to help to balance your hormones. And then I also have a functional lab elite program that includes the deep dive testing into like every system. We test everything very, very comprehensively. And then it's followed up with a protocol and weekly meetings with me as your provider to help you to get everything. And this is even more than hormones. This is really any kind of issue because we're testing everything from your thyroid to your hormones to your gut to help you feel your best. So that opens up in just a couple of weeks. And so whether people want to just grab some supplements, they want to get in a really low cost step-by-step program or go really deep with precision diagnostics and testing, I'm your girl. That's what I do.
So fun. To me, of course, I love all this stuff and I geek out on it. So to me, it's like, oh my God, that sounds so much fun. But I think for those that are going through it and it doesn't feel like so much fun right now because you're in it, whether you're in the perimenopause, menopause, or trying to conceive, I get it. I feel you. And I think the first step of trying to make the step to feeling better and getting the results that you want, whether that's having a baby or just feeling better, is really understanding your body, right? Not something that you're Googling online or now putting into Chat GPT. And part of that
Yes.
is by finding and working with somebody like Lucy to figure out what your body is trying to tell you, because
Mm,
there is a bigger picture to all of this. And these are all, knocks on the door for your body to let you know that something is going on that needs to be balanced. So
yes.
thank you for helping educate our listeners today. The one thing we didn't talk about that I want to just really touch on quickly is when people are trying to conceive, oftentimes that libido is not there because they're like, we feel like we're doing a job, we're having intercourse like on the
Yeah.
money every month, and it's just not
Mm,
fun anymore. And I'm just like not feeling it, as well as, of course, postpartum and all the other things. But let's
yes.
just focus on any suggestions on libido for women that are just like in that phase of
Yeah.
trying to get pregnant, and it's a
Yeah.
job at that point,
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
a job,
just
exactly, and it doesn't feel fun, it feels like a job. Well, you're going to
mhm.
love this because my book, Lucy Libido Says There's No Oil for That, after that went viral and became a bestseller, we had so many pregnancies. Like we had this massive baby boom in my community. And then everyone was like pregnant at the same time that
Awesome.
we wrote the follow-up sequel. And this sequel to Lucy Libido Says is Betsy Bosom's baby book. And it's a baby
Cute.
book all about natural solutions through pregnancy. Of course, it's never medical advice, but it's to help you use natural tools. And we wrote it with a doula and with a midwife and with a birthing center. Um, while one of my best friends, who is a birthing center doula, got pregnant, and so we kind of wrote it
Awesome.
through her whole pregnancy, and it was a really fun, updated, fresh version. And so, utilizing these tools can definitely help with libido. And women who are struggling with infertility, it's, as you know, it's so multifaceted and there's so many issues
Correct.
to it. But from my perspective of how I help women in my programs, in that is a lot of times it's low progesterone, it's high insulin, and it's high cortisol. And that's exactly what the Happy Hormone Lab helps with. So when we're younger,
Awesome.
it's going to present as infertility. When we're a little older, it's going to present as really difficult perimenopause. But the underlying causes are the same with that high cortisol and that high insulin. So the book is fun because it's all about libido, and you can grab the book and you can read it and you can use the tools in there. But you can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook. And the book is all about, it's super lighthearted. It's super fun. It's all about increasing your libido, having fun in the bedroom, using non-toxic products that are safe for you and aren't going to increase your toxic load, which we want to avoid when we're trying to get pregnant. It's a super fun book. And the Betsy Bosom book is like the best follow-up ever, because it's it's funny. The Lucy Libido book is how to have good libido. And then of course everyone's pregnant. And so we wrote the follow-up Betsy Bosom book.
That's so cute. Well, I'm glad I asked. So for all of you that are in that and struggling with that, pick up those books and have some fun with that, and know that you're not alone in those struggles and feeling that way during this time, but it will pass. So just know that. And you'll learn so much, as Lucy was saying. What's showing up now is also going to show and present itself later in a different way.
Absolutely.
So getting ahead of it is always a good thing.
Yes,
Well, thank you so
absolutely.
much for being here and
You're
having
so
our
welcome.
fun conversation today. And I can't wait for our paths to cross again.
I know. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.